My name is Khayran Noor. I'm a sports lawyer based in Nairobi, Kenya. I hold a master's in sports law and practice from De Montfort Leicester, or I can just say DMU Leicester in the UK. And I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and I'm an arbitrator, a member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. My journey into sports sports law has generally been, I've always been in love with sports. I mean, I wouldn't say I was a sports person, but I used to participate in sports in school. And growing up in a household of a father who is a passionate football fan, Manchester United, and of course we used to watch the Olympics. I mean, Kenya being one of the best in the athletics field, so naturally we would watch the Olympic Games, World Athletic Games, Diamond League. So I grew up with that love and passion for sports. And of course now I've always wanted to be a lawyer, so as I was pursuing that as an education pathway and as a career pathway, I also got to know about the field of specialization in sports law, and for me that was just a natural selection into my specialization area, so I decided to take that on as a career path. Yeah. Sports legal came to be because of my experience and my journey again as a sports person, quote unquote. I mean, when I saw how the system doesn't necessarily have the right resources or right infrastructure availability, where anyone who generally would like to take up sports can somehow get support either from the school or the government, or availability maybe on private level through academies, organizations that can train and nurture talent. So I generally looked into that, and of course, as we all know, Kenya, in as much as we do well in the athletic space and we're doing well in the sports space with our athletes, you know, winning gold medals and world records, we still have issues to do with corruption, mismanagement of sports office and funds. We already see that we have, lack of funding when it comes to infrastructure development. We don't have systems that, maybe help in the growth and development of grassroots sports, and generally just creating a space where everyone and anyone can be able to partake sports and nurture their talent and grow into that, and maybe not just as a sports person but also in terms of as a professional. We don't really have the right structures in place, and we also, in as much as we're now having, maybe with the Sports Act, we have a regulation in place, it's still not sufficient enough to cover, say, all the regulatory or policy frameworks that we should have as a country and as a sports sector. So that's what inspired me to come up with Sports Legal, look into the areas that we can maybe look into, highlight, create awareness on the legal side, and see how we can come up with ways to help with that. So, and of course now Sports Legal also used to operate as a non-profit, where we were setting up projects to look into marginalized youth, women and persons with disabilities, and trying to see how we can create sports spaces to include them and help them in participation, and also be included in sports generally as people who are generally overlooked or vulnerable groups in the society. When you talk about how the system already does not favor, say we already have societal barriers, we already have systemic and bias around sports, and of course when you talk about women and persons with disability, or even youth who are marginalized in the sense that maybe they're not exactly part of the community and as a day-to-day, and I'm talking about children, say in orphanage centers or children home centers. They're secluded in a community, in a structure where they do not interact on a day-to-day with the public. Yeah, they're in a home. They're either taken to a particular school, so they're driven to and fro, and then when they come back, it's just them by themselves in that same community. So you find most of the time they do not get to interact with other people. And with persons with disabilities, again, it's the same thing. They're not seen as people who are supposed to take part in sports, maybe through their physical disabilities. It's not a natural selection where you see an amputee person would naturally want to play football or would fit into that demographic of someone who would play sports, because we most of the time just see people who are strong and physically able, or even persons who are mentally challenged. Again, I don't know if that's the right terminology, but we can talk about that as well. It's not something that is naturally available for them, because there are people who are most of the time also secluded from the community again. And we already have a system where even for us who are physically able and in schools and in systems where we get to interact, we also don't already have like sports programs or sports curriculum. So with that, when it trickles down to them, it naturally already discriminates against them as they are. So we find there are already barriers to entry, lack of resources and support from our systems in place, starting from grassroots level to the government level. And again, when you look at women and girls, there's already that societal perception that sports is not for women and girls. And then when you go down again and look at women coming from a certain society like myself, where Muslim women, we're meant to be covered, we're meant to be modest and all that, we're not, or rather our society and our culture does not automatically accept our participation in physical activities. And again, drawing back to where we're already women who are not supposed to be, or rather not seen or naturally selected to be in physical activities such as sports. So you find it's a factor of many things. There's so many factors coming into play. When you look at economic, if you just draw the general, it could be social economic barriers and political barriers. Again, when you look at now the lack of proper policies now that can support the inclusion and creating a space where it's safe, where everyone is welcome and everyone is included in this, in the sporting activities and sporting forums. You mentioned contracts, and as we were discussing earlier, it's one of actually the main issues that affects athletes in Kenya, not just in Kenya, Africa, or even internationally, where they don't usually seek legal representation, or as you can see, even especially in Kenya, we're having athletes who are not exactly literate. Yeah, so they would not generally understand the legal jargons or the complex wording of a contractual agreement that is drawn by either a sports academy or a sports organization, who they have legal representation and they're well advised on their legal loopholes or liabilities. So you find most of the time athletes would go sign contracts, get into a contractual relationship without understanding what the terms and obligations and what the responsibilities come up from that contract. And then when it comes to now the termination part, or where a breach occurs, they're the ones facing the most liability, or they were the ones facing now problems when it comes to that, because again we have this how do I say this, we have this standing in law where we say ignorance is no defense. You should have sought legal advice. You should have known what you're getting yourself into, because you cannot say I did not know, because you're given a chance to go read. Sometimes they're not given the chance, because you find especially say in like international games or international competitions, an athlete can be given a contract at night, maybe a sponsorship agreement, where they have to go maybe, or the games are starting in like maybe a few days or even the next day. So they're in a rush to sign so they can get that deal that they've been presented. So you're not given an equal opportunity to seek that advice. So you just want to, get on it so you don't miss on that opportunity. And and maybe as you speak about abuse, yes, unfortunately, safeguarding is a crucial area, and it's actually being picked up now with sports governing bodies, especially the Football Federation of Kenya, where they're now looking into setting up safeguarding policies and putting safeguarding officers and reporting mechanisms and investigations so that they can be able to look into this. As I said earlier, yes, the cases are there, I'm not sure what the reporting mechanisms are for that. I mean, in my personal opinion, I don't think there's even investigation mechanisms for it, where we can have like a database where cases are reported, investigated, and the perpetrators are, actions is taken against them. So unfortunately, again, as I earlier mentioned, the systemic barriers, the socio-economic issues that now pose as a challenge for women and vulnerable groups to get into sports. The people in power, people who are coaches or the mentors or the administrators or even the leaders in the Federation of Sports Academies and organization use that as an advantage to now further discriminate, abuse athletes, because you've gotten this opportunity finally to be a player, to work in a sports organization academy, but then someone comes and tells you, if you don't do this with me, or if you don't allow this to happen, then you miss out on that opportunity. So there's always that, I would say, dilemma. Do I go ahead with it? Do I keep quiet and let this abuse continue so that I don't miss out on an opportunity to be in this space, or to be able to nurture my talent to either be an athlete or even just work in a sports organization or company, or just generally all stakeholders, either as a referee or as a coach. So not just athletes are vulnerable to this, but all stakeholders are vulnerable to this, and not just women and vulnerable groups generally, but even the groups that are sometimes overlooked, such as men or boys, are also vulnerable to abuse and discrimination. So it's something that cuts across all stakeholders and all players or actors in sports. But again, as we see, women and girls, personal disabilities, or people who are physically or mentally challenged are the most vulnerable or easier victims, so to speak, when it comes to the abuse. I think so far the best we've been able to achieve is being able to create a space where people can come and learn. We bring in different experts and different stakeholders to come and speak about these issues, because I think the first step is always being able to create the awareness around it, educate people about this, because again, when you're talking about discrimination and abuse, or just generally the misunderstanding, even when you look at the legal side, is that again, people do not know, or maybe they don't understand what is happening to them, or what they're getting into could be wrong. Yeah, so just being able to educate people on that, and also at the same time being able to educate stakeholders who are already in the space, either as administrators or as coaches, as referees, as leaders in a federation or organization, or even people who work with children and women or young girls, or even people with disabilities, again, as we mentioned, as the most vulnerable, being able to understand that some of the things that they might knowingly or unknowingly do are wrong, and lead up to abuse and discrimination that can impact and affect these people for their whole life. Most of the time, or if not all the time, negatively. So I think one has been able to create that space to teach people, to make people understand and be able to be on the lookout on the things that they should. But then at the same time, sports law being I would say as its infancy in Kenya and Africa, being able to now also educate other lawyers and educate legal professionals in the sector, or even just students who are coming into the field, to either take this up and understand that this is something that they can also specialize in, understand what it entails, and of course also understand the other facets that come up with sports law, because sports law again is very wide. And I feel like that we need more professionals, we need more experts to come into play and also help in the growth and development of it. And maybe just to add on to that, and you haven't mentioned it, but I think it's something that I should highlight, is also the doping space. Because we find most of our athletes also fail or rather get into trouble with violating anti-doping rules. And this is because, again, maybe an athlete can partake a medicine, can eat something, or can even, I'm sorry to say that, but also engage in sexual activity with partners who are either using a drug or have eaten something that consists a banned substance, and then when they get tested, they're found to have violated a doping rule. So I think that's also one of the things that really affects our athletes. especially in Kenya. So, I mean, we can't say all of them are ignorant or do not understand. There's some who actually know where they're advised by either their managers or coaches, so they can have like an unfair advantage in the sport. But then again, also our medical practitioners don't actually understand some of these things. They can prescribe a certain medicine which contains a substance that is banned under the World Anti-Doping rule or list of banned substances. So again, I think it's very important to just educate everyone in the sector so that they can also understand. So when an athlete comes to a doctor for flu or for maybe like asthmatic problems, because again, like when you look at the medicine that is given for asthma contains steroids. So you have to look if that steroid consists of banned substance. So these are some of the things that people generally have to know. So when they deal with athletes or even as physiotherapists, they understand that some of the things they have to look out for. So when the athlete doesn't understand, they can be there to guide and advise them on what to do so they can avoid these issues. I think what Whistler has been able to do is being able to bring, again, from the name, women in sports law. And this is an association that brings together women from all over the world. So when you go to their website, you see different women from different walks of life, different geographical areas, all working in the sports law sector, being under one space. And it has helped us to know more of each other because, I mean, I personally, before 2020, I was really lost because one, you're always looking for a mentor. You're always looking for someone to look up to. But then you're in a space where you're generally lost because one, you probably don't even know any other sports lawyer or woman sports lawyer from Africa. So you're wondering, how do I even get advice from someone who's either in the space or been in the space for some time to generally guide you and tell you how to navigate the career pathway. But then again, also seeing women internationally who are working in big organizations such as World Athletics or FIFA, and being able to draw inspiration from that and knowing that, if someone else was able to do that, you're able to do that. And of course now, just being able to be in a community like that, learning from each other, drawing inspiration from each other, and just knowing how you can better yourself, how you can grow in this space, what are the different areas you can look into to maybe better yourself academically, professionally. So it's been instrumental in that. And of course, through the activities, be it online or even physically, being able to meet and know more about each other and just creating a network and maybe even friendship from some of these forums. Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate, and I don't know if it's something you're going to ask maybe later on, but as a challenge, this has been, I would say, one of the main ones, and I always talk about this when I get the chance to, even just with friends or even with people who we work with in the sector, is that women generally just do not naturally help each other. And it's unfortunate because there's so much to do, especially when it comes to sports law, and not just sports law, just generally sports and every other sector. There's so much that can be done, and you cannot have monopoly, or you cannot have expertise in everything. Like I said, sports law is very diverse, and you need to know what your niche is and focus on that. And someone else may have bigger passion in something else and be able to create a niche in that. So there's a piece of cake for everyone, and I feel like it's just fair for us to be able to support each other, create a community where we genuinely look out for each other, and instead of now using that as where someone goes through a battle individually, but we come as a community and we're able to help each other and give each other chances to opportunities and just help each other grow in that space, because I think it's unfortunate that in such a field where there's so much to be done, especially in our country where there's so much like growth and development to be done and so much work involved in like all the issues that I've raised earlier, all the challenges that I've raised, that someone would just want to be the only one like taking up all that, and it's impossible. You can't do everything. So it's delegate, mentor someone, be able to teach someone and tell them maybe look into that, do this, even seek help when you can't do something. So you might have all the titles, but then again will fail in being able to articulate everything and be able to implement everything. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, opportunities are vast, and right now the space is growing, the interest is growing, especially in our country and in Africa. And like when I started out, it was generally, how would I say this? It's just you have to figure it out on your own. Right now, like you said, you have the communities, you have the organizations, the associations that are bringing people together, and you have now the people who are willing to mentor you, people who are willing to guide you, people who are, willing to advise you even with your career or even with your education pathway. So it's just a matter of taking advantage of it, being vocal in what you want, being assertive, and confident enough to ask and seek help where you need it. Because again, if you don't ask, you don't get. So it's just a matter of just being, open enough to want to learn more, open enough to seek help. It might be a challenge again, as we've said, women see each other as competitors, but I think even for the leaders or even for the ones that have already somewhat gained their space in the field, to also look out for the younger ones and the younger generation and lift them up and help them across the board. As a day-to-day, I always give myself new challenges. What can I do better? What is missing that I feel like I can go into it and maybe come up with a project or an activity that we can do something about it. I don't have a linear day-to-day. My depends on how I wake up. But I would say my general routine would be waking up, of course, doing my morning prayers, my morning workout, and then along the day you kind of now just do your work routine would be maybe responding to emails, reaching out to people in your community and seeing what we can be able to collaborate on, working on projects, reaching out to people who you can now collaborate with on that space, and of course educating and learning as you go along, because again, education is not static. You have to stay up to date with what is happening around the sector and the field, learning from different experts and different individuals who are doing different things. So I think for me that would be a typical day for me. And of course, self-care. If I'm tired, I'm tired. If I don't feel like working for that day, I'll just don't even respond to email. But when the pressure is there, you have to do it even when you don't feel like it. So yeah. As I mentioned, I like working out. Something I enjoy as a form of self-care. But then it's something I also enjoy as a hobby. As I mentioned, I grew up taking part in sports, and right now I'm actively engaging just because I want to stay fit, be healthy. Again, I enjoy a good book. I love reading, mostly novels. I enjoy a good movie. So when I don't feel like working, you find me on Netflix, or even just surfing through the web, or even just reading up on maybe this is not good because it's still work related, but of course reading about what other people are doing, what is new in the sector, what can be done, or how can we borrow from maybe the international space, or what is being done globally on the local sector. But and I like engaging people. I like learning from people, as I mentioned. So being part of a community, reaching out to friends, finding out what they're up to. I'm an introvert, so you wouldn't generally find me in public a lot, but when I get the chance through conferences or even just friends groups, I enjoy doing that occasionally, just to kind of get up from that rut of always working, always doing the same thing every day. I'll most likely still working in human rights space. Or maybe international relations. I've always admired or dreamt of working maybe with the UN, just generally being in the international space or diplomacy space. Yeah, because I enjoy what I do. Maybe might not be using sports as a tool or as a space to to implement that, but I'll still be working in advocacy and creating impact, you know, in whatever career or whatever job I would have been doing. But then again, I've always had the what if of if I was able to successfully pursue my passion as a sprinter, maybe I would have been the first Muslim woman from Kenya to participate in the 100 meters sprint, and hopefully, or I mean, as a dream, maybe have an Olympic medal at this point. Yeah.